Hey, boys, let's raise a glass. We have S.A. Sean Cosby in the house.
There he is. He's back. Woohoo.
How's it going, guys? Good to see you guys again.
Yeah, man. It's good to have you on,
man.
Totally looking forward to this one. Hey, so Sean, last time when we talked last year, you mentioned you were writing a story about two dads set on avenging the murder of their gay sons. And at first I was like, okay, that might be a good read. But shit, man, I should have known better because I just finished reading Blacktop Wasteland, which is right over my left shoulder, because holy hell, Razorblade Tears, dude, it blew me away in every way possible. And I mean that sincerely. But for those who might just be discovering this book and discovering you, would you mind giving us the elevator pitch for Razorblade Tears?
Oh, yeah, no problem. Love to. So basically, Razorblade Tears is a story of two fathers, one black, one white, both ex-cons, who when their gay sons are murdered in what appears to be a hate crime, they decide to take up the investigation themselves because they don't feel the police are doing their due diligence. But also, they're trying to redeem themselves because neither one of them were accepting of their son's sexuality. So it's a story about revenge and redemption and grief and how we process those things and a wood chipper.
Yeah.
Damn right, there's a wood chipper.
We do.
So in Razorblade Tears, I mean, you tackle a lot of serious topics. And it's not just one topic, serious topics, a whole host of them. You know, you have black, white, gray, trans, hetero, rich, poor, relationships, father and son, wife and husband. And any one of those issues would have been enough to fill a story. And yet you weaved all of those things into this fantastic book. So was that always the plan? And did you intend to explore those issues, or did all those issues evolve organically as you wrote the story?
I think I knew initially going in that I was going to talk about two men of a certain age who are very narrow-minded in their beliefs. But some of the other stuff just became natural narrative, became a part of the natural narrative flow. You know, you've got these two older gentlemen. In my mind, since I'm 47, they're 55 and 54 respectively. Try to keep that away for as long as possible. And, but in my mind, you know, you got these two guys that are forced to, you know, sit in the truck. And because it's in the country, because it takes place in southeastern Virginia, it takes 30 to 45 minutes to an hour to get anywhere. So you got these long periods of time. Yeah. You have these long periods of time where they have no choice but to talk. And in talking, they confront a lot of things about themselves: racism, homophobia, classism. And then these two gentlemen that are our protagonists, I did intentionally make it so that no one gave them an easy out. Like everybody called them on their BS, including Ike's wife, including people in the LGBTQ community that they meet or they run into, including Buddy Lee's neighbor who kind of sort of has a crush on him. Yeah. And so, you know, and by doing that, it forced them as characters to confront the bad things about themselves while also seeing the potential for good and growth in themselves as well.
Yeah. One of the central storylines is an issue that families across the country encounter on a daily basis, which we've just talked about, same-sex couples. And the geographical and cultural qualities you're all too aware of in the rural South really drove home the struggle of an older generation rooted in old beliefs pitted against a father's love for their sons. Had you seen that growing up? Where did this issue spring from for the kind of the central theme for Razorblade Tears?
I had seen it a little bit growing up. You know, like I said, I'm 47. So when I was a kid, and this isn't to be dismissive at all, but when I was a kid, most of the gay people that I knew were very closeted, or it was an open secret. And so, like, I don't want to put anybody on blast, but there were certain people in certain positions in my church or in certain positions in the community that it was like, I think he's gay, or she's lesbian or what, but they weren't allowed to be openly out,
Right.
and I live in a small town of 8,000 people. And so, in 1986 or 87, when I was 13 or 14, it was difficult for interracial couples to be out openly, let alone a gay person.
Right.
And so growing up, I didn't see that as much. But what was the genesis of this book was I have a friend who's about the same age as I am. And about 5 years ago, he came out to his parents. Like, we all knew he was gay, but his parents either didn't know or didn't acknowledge it. And so he basically forced the issue, and it didn't go well. And I remember I was having a beer with him later, and he said, maybe I should have kept it to myself. And that just really struck me. I can't imagine how it felt for him to say that.
Yeah.
But for me, hearing it, it was devastating, because I can't imagine not being able to be the full version of yourself with people who are supposed to love you unconditionally.
Right.
And so that just kind of rattled. Yeah, yes, your parents. Your parents are supposed to love. I mean, if my mama can love me for getting in fist fights and getting kicked out of bars and, maybe possibly setting the backwoods on fire, then anybody can
allegedly
for anything. Yeah, allegedly, inspired by an episode of MacGyver. Yeah. But seriously, that's always it stuck with me. And so when I got ready to do the follow up to Blacktop Wasteland, how can I put this? I really wanted to do something different. Like, I was getting advice from some corners, like, do Blacktop Wasteland 2, or do another heist novel, or do something in that vein. Maybe not even carrying on with Bug, who's the central character of Blacktop, but do something in that same vein. And I pushed back on that. It wasn't like a confrontation or nothing. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to challenge myself and see if I was able to tell a different type of story. And so that's why I really pressed ahead with Razorblade Tears. But it was hard. It was difficult. And I went through a lot of iterations and went through a lot of drafts. I had friends who are from the LGBT community that read it and gave me a lot of insight and a lot of points, where I went right and where I went wrong. One of my friends, he's thanked in the comments. He's the author himself, PJ Vernon. He just wrote a book called Bathhouse, which is a great book, by the way. But and he's a good friend of mine. And one of the points that he made to me, I let him read an early draft. And there's a scene in the book where there's a scene in a gay bar. And the end of the scene, there's a confrontation, a physical confrontation. And I wrote the scene very solemn. Like, I had the scene where basically what happens is Ike and Buddy Lee find a clue to who murdered their sons. And so they go to investigate it at this gay bar, and they're trying to get some info. Whereas Buddy Lee is basically a functioning alcoholic. So he's just rolling with the punches. It's like, they got liquor, I don't care.
Literally.
Ike is very uncomfortable. Ike is very uncomfortable. He's not able to let go of his prejudices enough to even just do the work that they're there to do. So anyway, he gets hit on, and he reacts very negatively, very violently. And in the initial scene, I had everybody stand up to the side and kind of observe him in a disappointed manner and all that kind of stuff. And PJ, God bless him, he said, a fight in a gay bar is like a fight in every other bar. Tables get turned over, people getting involved, people trying to get out the way. He said, it's chaos. He said, you don't have to put LGBTQ people on a pedestal. He said, it's just like anywhere else. When somebody, throws a punch, different types of things happen. And so that was one of the examples that made me realize, okay, if I'm going to tell this story, I have to be brutally honest with everybody.
Sure.
The Black characters, the white characters, the LGBTQ characters, everybody has to be shown warts and all so that the story has a certain resonance. So
right.
You nailed it.
Dude.
Mike mentioned the generational clashes, and it's easy to get. Speaking of clashes, it's easy to get depressed at the state of things and the national discourse if social media is the lens with which you view everything through. But first with Beauregard or Bug, and now with Ike and Billy Ray, people are investing in these characters whose lives are alien to most of us, to be honest. And intellectually, they're walking in their shoes. Does it give you a bit of hope to see how enthusiastically your characters have been embraced?
I think hope is everlasting. I believe that, social media isn't the real world. I've learned that. If that's one thing I've learned, that Twitter and Facebook, that's not the real world. If you are alien and you came down to the planet Earth and you read Twitter and you read Facebook or you read Instagram, whatever social media platform, you would think, oh wow, we should nuke this planet because people are so miserable. And let's put them out of their misery. But when you go out in the real world, especially even now with in the I would say hopefully in the waning days of the pandemic, hopefully get vaccinated in the waning days of the pandemic, or even before that, like I went out like to New York City, and if you believe everybody on social media, you would think, oh my God, New York City is a cesspool of violence and anger. Everybody's in a bad mood and you're going to get robbed and beat. And it could nothing be further from the truth. I enjoy going to New York City, and I'm as country as they get. I'm country right down to my boots. And I love going up there. I love going to Vegas with some friends. I think it was Mark Twain that said, if you force a man to travel, he has no choice but to open his mind. And I think that's true. And so seeing people embrace Ike and Buddy Lee is sort of forcing them to travel in a way.
Right.
It's forcing them to come to Southeastern Virginia and see people like Ike, who was a former ex-con who's fought and scraped and scratched his way to some form of respectability, or somebody like Buddy Lee, who's lost his way, who feels sort of this existential weight, but at his core, he's done bad things, but he's a good person, just like at his core, Ike is a good person.
Right.
So I think, when you see, when you go on Instagram and you see readers from Connecticut or Oregon or San Francisco say they love the book, or you see bookstagrammers from all walks of life that are very different from my experience say how much they love the book. And I feel like I've taken them on a journey and they've traveled to my little corner of the world. It does give me hope. It gives me a lot of hope that, the human condition is not terminal as far as for kindness and empathy.
Yeah.
So Sean, those who don't know, you might think you came out of nowhere, that you merged on the thriller crime mystery
instant
scene
success
as a fully formed writer, right? but we know you put the work in day and day out. You were writing, and at first you did short stories. You even won a bunch of awards for your short stories. Yeah. Do you think starting off writing short stories helped you as a novelist? And would you advise aspiring authors who might be struggling with breaking through to write some short stories?
Yeah, I definitely think writing short stories made me a better novelist. Because, for the longest time, I didn't think I could write a novel. I felt like the short story was my medium. And a good friend of mine named Todd Robinson, he was the one that encouraged me to write a crime novel. He was like, you're such a good short story writer. He said, just expand it. He said, all a book, this is his quote. I don't know if this is his quote originally, but he told me one time, he said, all a book is a bunch of little short stories.
Yep.
Each chapter is a little short story. And so he kind of gave me it gave me the courage, like, all right, I'm going to try it. But I don't think, personally speaking, for me, I would have been good at writing novels if I hadn't gotten pretty good at writing short stories with a beginning, a middle, and an end, the rising action and then the denouement. I mean, I think that's the part of learning how to write a story, how to write a propulsive story. I mean, now I think especially for crime writing, I think it's really important. I think it's important to be a short story writer. Now, if you want to write what they call literary fiction or general fiction, I don't think I don't know if it would necessarily be as important to you. Like if you read, and I love this person's work, if you read Donna Tartt, I can't imagine Donna Tartt writing a short story. I've read The Secret History and The Goldfinch, and those books are heavy duty. Those books are weapons. I could put that book in a pillowcase and bust somebody inside the head. And I can't imagine her writing a short story because her style, her vocabulary, the evocativeness of her work is just book length. That's it.
Right.
But I think if you're a crime fiction writer, it teaches you how to create suspense and atmosphere and action. And if you want to break into crime writing, try to get your short fiction idea. Try to get in anthologies. Try to get in magazines, collections, all of that. Because the hard truth is, this is a business. And this business is built on relationships. So if you've got an editor at a magazine that you get to know and that you write some good work, they're probably going to publish your work, and that's going to show up in maybe another person's mailbox or email box. An agent might use through that magazine or that anthology. I think the secret to trying to get published is getting your name out there. Nobody's going to come knocking on your door and beg for your genius. So
right.
Damn it.
If I only.
By the way, hold on. He said I think you said you're an okay short. You do some good short stories, or you're okay, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
Dude, please,
we're gonna talk him up. Hey, let's go back to Razorblade Tears for a second. And we've kind of hit on this a little bit. There was a ton of storylines really unfolding all around you. I felt like it was like a 360 with all these stories happening. Was there any point in time that you were worried that maybe you were going to get lost a little bit? Like, how did you?
Yeah, every day. Every time I went to write it, I'm like, okay, I got to remember this thing, and I got to remember this thing, and I got to make some notes, and I got to remember who this person is. Are these people here? Because I'm obsessed with plot holes. Yeah. I hate plot holes in my own work. I'm the worst person to go to a movie with if it's going to have any kind of suspense or mystery or anything like that. Because I'm the person that'll nudge you. Hey. They couldn't have known that. They weren't in that. And everybody's like, shut up. We paid $16. I'm like, I'm just saying. And so, I rewrote and wrote those storylines. And my biggest concern, though, was bringing it all home. Right. It's one thing to set off a bunch of storylines, like, when you're fishing. It's one thing to cast off a lot of lines. Yeah. It's another thing to reel all those lines in at the same time. And so my biggest concern was, how do I tie all of this together? Some of that was planned, but some of that was accidental as hell. Wow. If you read the book,
really,
there's a character. If you've read the book, there's a character who owes Ike a favor, but right. Ike is very reticent to claim this favor because he has to go back. Yeah, Slice. And Slice does something in the book that is very duplicitous. That was an accident. When I got to that point, no kidding, I thought about it and I said, man, what would be cool? I think it'd be cool if Slice did this and tie it back to something that was very random in the beginning, in the second chapter. And so, because the thing I tied it to was just me trying to show how bad a certain set of characters were. And I'm like, oh man, what if that's tied together? I mean, they're all in Virginia. It's not like they wouldn't know each other. They're all criminals. Right. So that was the happy accident. And then from that accident, I was able to backfill it and like, oh, well, this is why Slice is doing it. This is why he feels this way. He's jealous of Ike because of something Ike did that he didn't have the strength to do. And so it made the story, I think, more nuanced and more layered and more complex. And if you read the book to the end, there's a little hint of Slice's final destination.
Yeah,
so,
I did like that. By the way, that was no accident, man. I mean, we're writers, and I tell my wife this all the time. Like, I don't know why I wrote this part in, but I know it's gonna tie in somewhere down the road later on. I'm like, I have no idea why this character is doing this. No idea. I had to write it though, and then it just ties it in. And
exactly,
it's not an accident. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So again, sticking with the characters, a lot of writers tend to make their protagonist an avatar for themselves, an idealized version, a turbocharged version, a flawed version. In Bug, Ike, and Billy Ray, you've created characters who have done things I'm guessing Sean Cosby has not done.
We're hoping anyway.
We won't quantify everything.
Not at all.
There's a lot that you haven't done. So in what ways, though, do you inject your own DNA into those characters when they are diametrically opposed to you in some moral sense?
I mean, like, I guess of the three characters, the one I'm least like is Buddy Lee, because he's an older white guy from the South. But I by virtue of where I live and by virtue of the life I've led, I've got a lot of friends who are older white guys from the South. A lot of them are way more enlightened than Buddy Lee, but they come from a background and a situation that is similar. that they've chosen to educate themselves, so to speak, and become better people. But, you know, like for instance, there's a scene toward the end of the book where Buddy Lee is relaying to Ike an anecdote about him and his grandfather watching the Ten Commandments. That anecdote is based on a conversation I had with a friend, a white guy, that he was talking about, you know, that's my grandfather and I love him. But then at the same time, he made this horribly racist joke. Yeah. And when I was like 9 or 10, I laughed, and I feel bad about that all the time. And I, you know, basically Ike's response is sort of my response, but my response was more sensitive, where Ike doesn't care about Buddy Lee's feelings. But you know, if you talk about Ike and Buddy Lee, I think their experiences as African-American men specifically, and African-American people in general, are how I'm able to enter their spaces. I think with Bug, I think Bug was the voice I needed to use to talk about some things that were personally difficult for me. I had a difficult relationship with my father, and, you know, later on with my mom, and I was able to repair the relationship with my father while being able to give nuance to the relationship with my mom. And so I've never robbed a jewelry store, but I've driven fast. I've worked on stuff, and I've had a drag race or two. But with Bug, it was much more closer. It was much more personal. With Ike, I'm not Ike. I don't have very much in common with Ike, outside of even his violent past. Just the way he views the world, I don't see things that way. But I know a lot of people who do. I know a lot of people who see things that way, who would tell you, I'm a good person. I go to church every Sunday, or I take care of my family. And just because I don't think two men should be together doesn't make me a bad person. And because they have that blind spot in their personality, they're not able to understand that you're not really a good person.
Yeah.
All those good things don't stack up well against this what you think is one bad thing. And so I knew people like Ike. I know people like Ike. And I've had conversations with people. The conversation in the barbershop, I've had that conversation, you know, and I've been that barber who's like, you know, you guys are full of crap. I don't know what you guys are talking about. And so I wanted to talk about that, because I will say this real quick. Also, part of the inspiration for the book is I really wanted to talk about the socially, not politically, but the socially conservative streak that runs through the African-American community in the South. You know, a lot of the African-American community and experience centers around church and religion and ideas of masculinity and femininity that are pretty old school, rigid, and in many ways outdated. And I really wanted to talk about that, because I personally feel like that's a problem that nobody's addressing. And, you know, I'll give you guys this anecdote. When I was growing up, there were 2 words that you could say to me as a kid that I was taught were fight on sight. If you say these 2 words, we're going to fight. One of them was the N-word, but the other one was the pejorative for a gay person. Yeah. And I've seen situations in my own life where people that I knew were markedly angrier for being called a pejorative for a gay person than they were for the N-word. That doesn't mean they were jumping up and clicking their heels together for being called the N-word, but I could see a different sort of anger, a different sort of, it was like a almost a more personal attack. And growing up around that, I have a theory as to why that is. And I'll just give you the cliff note. I think for some African-American men, you're already fighting the idea that the rest of the world doesn't see you as a man or as a person, you know, and that's, you know, you're called boy by some people, or you're not treated as an adult male. And so you're very protective of your idea of masculinity. Right. What I feel personally is everybody's idea of masculinity is their own. My idea is different from yours, different from Sean's, different from, you know, anybody else's. And I think if we are able to understand that, I think there would be less conflict when it comes to seeing, you know, 2 men who are gay or 2 women who are gay or somebody who's trans, because ultimately that's got nothing to do with me. That's not nothing to do with me unless they running to me in traffic and we got to exchange insurance, or, they're rude to me at a bar or something. People living their life has nothing to do with me, and I think there is a dichotomy. No, and I think there's a dichotomy, especially as an African American man. I see there's a dichotomy for this, the search and fight for civil rights as a person of color, and the search and fight for civil rights as a member of the LGBTQ community. And I think there's a lot of intersectionality there, that a lot of people aren't willing to acknowledge.
Well, I must apologize really quickly, and you were very gracious not to smack me upside the head for calling Buddy Lee Billy Ray twice, not once, but twice.
Yeah, I was like, Billy Ray.
I thought you were thinking. Yeah, I thought you had an achy breaky heart, so I didn't want to get into it.
Well, I do happen to know a Billy Ray who is as redneck as anybody I've ever met in my entire life.
That's what I was like, what book did I read? I don't read that book.
I figured y'all fix it in post, so I didn't say anything.
Yeah, dub it over in Japanese. We're good.
Oh, dub it.
But I love that barbershop scene. Because look at me. I haven't spent time in I got friends who go to the barbershop, black friends who go to the barbershop, and they tell me all the funny jokes and stories that go on, but I look at my hair. I don't go to the black barber. But there was like the kid who was getting his hair cut, and Ike having that conversation, how he had just had that really tenuous conversation with Slice, and then he comes out and he still needed to get some shit off his chest. And I was like, damn, I was waiting for another bar scene, something to happen in there. I was like, oh my gosh, whirlwind followed right around.
I think Ike, Buddy Lee gets the best funny lines, but I think Ike gives the best threats.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if somebody told me you get about that chair, they'll be picking pieces of you out of the wall for a week, I would sit my ass back down. So,
oh, dude, Sean, you're the king of similes? No,
colloquialisms.
Similes, yeah. There was one laugh out one that Buddy Lee did. Something about his nuts, dude. I laughed out. My wife's like, "What are you reading?" I'm like, he's killing me. He's killing me. It was laugh out funny, dude. Some of that shit that just popped, like
Buddy Lee gets all the funny lines.
Dude, I was wondering, like, do those just pop into your head? Because if they do,
write them down all the time.
I wish I had that.
Yeah. I grew up in a family of very, very comical people. I grew up with a lot of backyard orators and cookout barbecue raconteurs. And all of my uncles and aunts were very sharp on their feet when I was a kid. They always playing dozens and picking at each other and making jokes. Yeah. And so I grew up in an environment where you had to have a thick skin and you had to learn to be really quick on your feet because they had no mercy. They had no mercy at all. And so I remember one night, I'm telling on myself. I remember one night I went out and I got poopy drunk. I just got poopy drunk. And I came home and we were living with my grandmother at the time. And I laid down on the floor because I couldn't get up the steps. I was like, I'm not going to make it. I've had too much moonshine and too much cheap liquor. And I just laid down in the hall. And my grandma comes in and she steps over me and she stops and turns around. And she says, you know what? If I put an apple in your mouth, you're like a killing hog. And just kept on walking.
Your grandmother said that?
So, oh yeah, my grandmother said that. My grandfather was sharp on his feet. My uncles were really sharp on their feet. You had to, like I said, you came to my house, you had to have a thick skin and be ready to throw down. So, it was all done in love. It was all done. Yeah. And I, like I always tell people, we were really poor, but we were rich in love and spirit. And I actually miss those days. A lot of people passed on, and I remember being a kid and having spontaneous cookouts. Like it'd be a Saturday evening, and somebody would show up and was like, "Oh, I got some venison, I got some deer meat. Can we throw it on the grill?" And my grandfather would roll his grill out, and then another person would see the smoke, and they pull in the driveway, and another person would come over. And I got a bottle of something. Y'all want to drink it? And then somebody would get a big. And this now I'm really dating myself. Somebody would get a big boombox radio.
Yeah,
or my grandmother, God rest her soul. My grandmother grandmother had one of those floor model record players, and we drag it out on the porch, and then she played Marvin Gaye and Jackie
that's
Wilson.
awesome.
And, you know, it's just I remember those times. So yeah, but
times.
yeah, a lot of those lines pop in my head as I'm writing. One of my favorite ones, and I don't know if everybody gets it, but when Ike and Buddy Lee go to the head shop, the bong shop,
yep,
and one of the guys there has a monocle, and he's about to interfere in a fight, and Buddy
Monopoly
Lee
guy,
throw your roll, Panama Jack. I love that one.
Dude, there were.
I laughed when I wrote that.
Oh man, that was so awesome.
Hey, so just recently, I posted on social media that you, Sean, you've quickly become one of my favorite authors, and a lot of it has to do not just with like the plots, but you know your writing style, your ability to craft characters. I could strip away any of the dialogue tags and know without a doubt who was talking, which character was talking, and that goes for even like the minor secondary characters.
Wow.
But I'd like to peel back the writer's curtain a bit and pick your brain on how do you do that? Like, where does that? How do you build up that skill?
For me personally, I got it from reading people who are really masters of dialogue. Walter Mosley, Elmore Leonard, Dennis Lehane, James Lee Burke, guys who are masters of pure dialogue. And what I learned, and I don't know if this is what anybody else took from it, this is just what I'm taking from it. What I learned was what they do is they create specific syntaxes for their characters. Like if you read Elmore Leonard's Swag, you know when Stick is talking and when Ryan is talking. You know, Ryan's fast talking car salesman, so he talks in big bursts. Stick is a tough country boy from Florida, from the Florida Panhandle, and he's very taciturn, so he doesn't talk a lot. So his sentences are really short. And so I picked that up from Leonard, and also Lehane does that really good. Dennis Lehane, especially his early detective work, when even though Patrick is doing stuff in first person, when Patrick is talking versus when Bubba's talking or when Angie's talking. And again, he used the same technique. Everybody has a specific syntax. So for me, when I was doing Ike, I had Ike. Ike is very, he's a man of few words until he's pressed. He's, like I said, he gives a good threat. And because he doesn't talk a lot, his threats carry weight. He's not saying a lot, but when he does talk, you better listen because every word means something.
Right.
Whereas with Buddy Lee, his way of dealing with his sadness and his grief is to just constantly joke. So he's always pulling out a one-liner. He's always being silly, always trying to be funny. And sometimes it's forced because he doesn't want to deal with the reality of his situation. Whereas with Ike's wife, Maya, she's someone who, when she speaks in long, complete sentences. She speaks in like topical paragraphs. She states the topic and then she states supporting clauses or supporting sentences behind the topic. And I did that on purpose. I did all of that intentionally, because I wanted to, like you said, for somebody who doesn't hear the dialogue tags, I wanted them to know who was talking. I did that in Blacktop Wasteland too.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm having a little harder time doing that in the book I'm working on now because it's a lot of characters. So I'm actually fighting with my editor about that. But anyway, yeah, I definitely do that on purpose. I try to do that intentionally. And I also think it makes the dialogue flow more naturally because we all don't talk the same.
Right.
And so everybody has a different way of talking, a different way of communicating. So I definitely try to do that on purpose.
Nice.
One thing I used to, when I was screenwriting, the great thing about Final Draft is you can actually click on a character and it'll pull all that character's dialogue to the side. You can read through to make sure, you have the consistency and do it. It's completely different animal with the book. They haven't invented that program yet. So it's definitely a challenge, I think.
Hey, on social media, you've gotten some recent shout outs from luminaries like R.L. Stine, Stephen King. And so when I see all this, and we know you a little bit, how important is your mama's words never rise above your upbringing to keep you grounded when people of that stature are looking forward to and praising your work?
I'll tell you another colloquialism my mama used to say all the time, God rest her soul. She used to say, the shine wears off of new pennies really quick. And you got to think about that, that it won't always be like this. I know that, and so on one hand, I'm very grateful. I used to sneak Stephen King books into my study hall because my teacher was convinced they were Satanists. and for him to say something about my work, oh yeah, my teacher was like, this is the work of the devil. I'm like, well, that's a vampire book, and that's about a werewolf. I don't see the devil in there, but whatever. But R.L. Stine, same thing.
Yeah,
Goosebumps was persona non grata in my school. But when somebody like R.L. Stine or Stephen King, I actually got a really nice message from George Pelicanos a couple of months back. A guy that I grew up admiring, The Wire and his Nick Stefanos detective novels and stuff. Or, Dennis Lehane sends my editor a very nice message about Razorblade Tears. The thing that I try to tell myself is enjoy it in the moment because it's not always going to be like that. And so that helps keep you grounded. Also, I'm a lapsed Southern Baptist, and we are, if nothing, mired and terrified into being humble. So that has a lot to do with it too. But you get enough fire and brimstone sermons on a Sunday.
Yeah.
I ain't saying shit to nobody. But I think like I said, I don't mean to be negative. Like I know this isn't going to last, but I know there's going to be a new hot writer behind me. My dream always was to be consistent. I didn't necessarily want to be like the new hot thing, but I wanted a career where I could just publish books consistently. I wanted to be able to write full time. This is just icing on top of the cake. That being said, I don't know if I can curse, so just bleep me out. It's fucking awesome. Oh my God, it's so fucking awesome. To sit up and see like Jimmy Fallon talking about my book on his TV show.
I know, I saw that.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, and I tell people all the time, I say this, I know people are sick of hearing it, but I am a poor country boy from the Virginia lowlands. I'm a college dropout. I've had, numerous jobs. I've worked a lot of like public, manual labor jobs. I'm not a genius at all, but I will say I'm stubborn, and I've got a lot of stick to this, and I got that from my family. And so, I think the thing is you got to have talent to get in this game.
Yeah,
but you also got to have durability.
Yeah,
and durability will outlast talent. I know a lot of talented people who have either left publishing or are not actively trying to get published. And that doesn't mean that they've lost their talent. That doesn't mean they're not great writers, but it's a hard business. And I know without a doubt how lucky I am. I realize that very, very, it's very apparent to me that I'm very lucky. So I'm going to enjoy it while it lasts. And, in 5 years, if I'm what happened to them person, oh, well, you can't take that, New York Times bestseller list away from me. So
there you go.
Well, we're going to kind of stick with the whole theme here. Last year around this time, you came on our show. You and I connected on Twitter, and we set it up and via DM and when you were going to come on. And then we stayed on for a couple hours because none of us had anything better to do after our interview. Well, now we're a year later. You have a publicist who sets up the interviews, make sure your schedule's right. In case you have more than one interview like you do today.
Right.
And to steal a phrase from Ron Burgundy, you're kind of a big deal. But tell us, and I know you're staying humble and we're not helping, but that's okay. Tell us a bit about how your life has changed. And I mean that from the sense of, how you approach your writing, how you approach your day, what the demands are, whatever you want to share with us.
It's changed a lot. Like last year, I was just getting into being with a major publishing company, for lack of a better word. And I really didn't understand what that meant. I mean, not saying that my agent didn't do a good job. He did do a good job of telling me what that meant. I just wasn't absorbing it. Like, oh, I'm with a big publishing company. Okay, I guess that'll me more publicity. And it's totally different than being with an independent publisher. I started independent, with a small press.
Yeah.
And a small press really feels, in some ways it's more personal, but it's also more punk rock. It's like
right.
You guys are working, you and the publisher are working together to hustle and scuffle and try to get your book here and get you an appearance there. And like I saved my money to go to BoucherCon to hawk my book, and so you kind of doing that, like you said, that punk rock guys in a van type mentality. Yeah. When you get with a big publisher, all that's taken away from you, and it's taken away from you because they just want you to write. So you don't have to organize the events. You don't have to beg somebody to get your book in their bookstore. Right. It's totally different. I will say this: when you get to a certain level of notoriety, I guess is a good way of saying it. You get some projects. Like I'm working on 2 projects right now that are deadlines that are coming hard and fast, and I'm trying to finish one this week so I can jump right into one next week and finish that. So that's a little bit different. That's a little more pressure, I think, but also you get a little more flexibility. If you could put bestseller behind your name, people are a little nicer to you. They're a little more open to kind of giving you some space. And so that's not bad. That's not a bad thing at all. But I think for me, the main thing that changed is that, like I said, I'm writing full time. I have opportunities that I never would have had prior to this. Like I said, the thing I'm writing, I'm doing a project where I'm working on I can't talk about the secret project, but I'm using Final Draft in a secret project. It's not a movie, but I'm doing something with Final Draft for a secret project, and I'm doing a secret project with another author. And so those 2 things are really cool, in addition to writing my next book for Flatiron. And so I think the thing that's changed the most is that I feel finally confident enough to call myself a writer. And somebody will say, well, you had Blacktop Wasteland and won all these awards. You didn't think you were a writer then? This year was the first time that I've been able to use my compensation from writing to pay the bills.
Nice. Awesome,
I don't feel
Congrats.
That. I think the thing is, okay, I'll give you an example. So our car died or was dying. It was on its last leg.
Yeah.
And so we go to the car dealership and we're looking at some cars. And I'm a person who's never bought a new car. I've always had a used car. My cars have always been subject to black lights. And what is that? Oh my God. So we're at the car dealership. And the guy's like, well, let's look at these cars. I look at these cars, and Mr. Cosby, I think you qualify for this, you qualify for that. And this is probably the most extravagant thing I've ever done. So I wanted to look at the the Dodge Charger with the Hellcat.
Oh my gosh!
But the person that I was with was like, no, we need to get a regular car, not this time machine. And so we get the car and we take it home. And I hesitate to say this because it'll sound like I'm bragging, so please don't take it that way. But we get this really nice SUV, the Dodge Journey 2021, and I was able to pay for it, like just pay for it straight out, and that's the most extravagant thing I've ever done. And I sat in it. We pulled in the driveway, and I was sitting in the driveway, and I was looking at it. I was like, my book did this.
Yeah,
my
awesome.
Writing did this. And I don't think I fully was prepared for how that would feel. Because I got a little choked up, I got a little choked up because it was like, I've been, like you said, a lot of people think, oh, it's an overnight success. I've been writing since back when you had to send a self-addressed stamped envelope to get your story back. I was writing in the Stone Age, when your story turnaround was 4 to 6 weeks to see if they had gotten it, let alone getting it back. Yeah. And, it's funny. I'll tell you another anecdote. This is a little mean-spirited, but just bear with me. So talking about being with a big company and being with a big publisher, when I was with an independent publisher, there was a bookstore, and I can say who it was, but there was an independent bookstore that I really, they had been going through some things, and I was like, oh man, I want to support the store. I went and talked to the person there. I'm like, hey, stock my book, stock my darkest prayer, and I'll do events here and I'll promote it. We'll help each other, right? And that person was like, oh, I'll think about it. And they blew me off. Never heard from them again. Same store this year was begging for signed copies of Razorblade Tears. And I wasn't petty. I gave them the copies. But it made me realize just how different my position is now than it was then,
Yeah.
And I think because I came up the hard way, I think I value this way more than maybe somebody who, if I was 24 years old coming out of an MFA program and all this was happening, y'all would see me on Dateline NBC like 2 years later because I wouldn't have been able to handle it. I would not have been able to handle it. It'd have been like, noted Southern author has furry orgy at his mansion. And it was like,
you better get an invite to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll bring the booze.
But because I've grown and matured a little bit, I'm able to deal with the ups and downs of this and realize that the ups won't last forever and the downs are not permanent.
Right.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, Sean, you've completed the traditional portion of the interview. And then we're going to move on to the lightning round where we're going to ask you dumb, stupid questions. And hopefully you give us dumb, stupid answers back.
We have a little bit of a twist this time, though. We had a contest, online contest, and one of our viewers won, and they're going to start the lightning round off. So as soon as Mike lets him, Frank is our...
Frank. Hey, Frank.
Hey, man. Hey.
Cheers, Frank. Welcome.
Booze, brother.
Absolutely.
So and
cheers.
Frank, after he won the contest, sent us some booze from Creature Comforts.
Yeah.
We need to get some of this to Sean.
Very nice.
Yeah.
There it is.
But anyway,
absolutely. I'm glad you're enjoying.
Frank, you want to? Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So, Frank, we're going to let you go first, and then we'll get your questions out there, and then we'll kind of move on to the rest of the interview. But Frank, since you are our big winner, let's see what Sean can handle on your end.
Good luck.
Oh, great. No pressure here.
No. Gosh, let's see.
Yeah. So I think if you've been following on Twitter, Chris kind of hangs his hat on page 137. And spends a lot of time focusing there. So if you had to pick, Sean or Mike, and what would they hang their hat on in your book? I mean, what would be like their expertise that you would focus on them?
All right.
Would it be working on the duster, or would you keep them far away?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think Sean and Mike would both be in Blacktop Wasteland. They'd probably be on scene, when is the jewelry heist? Scene 150.
Oh, no.
I think in Razorblade Tears, though, I think I would love to. I don't know the page. I don't know the page, but I would love to see Sean and Mike in the bakery store.
You get
turned over tables.
When Buddy Lee is turning over cakes. I would love to. What I imagine is the two of them in there looking at something totally different and like, oh my God, this dude is wrecking this store. and how they quietly leave without trying to get involved.
Maybe not even quietly.
Oh no, I would actually be catching the stuff he was going. Hey, this is ruined. Let me take it off your hands.
You're not going to sell this cake now. I'll just take this.
All right, Frank.
All right, so your first two books, and by the way, I just finished Blacktop. Really enjoyed it. Very different from a lot of the spy thrillers I read, and it was a great read. And I can't wait to get into the next one. So Thank you for that. What is the future? I mean, do you see most of your books being standalones, or do you see kind of getting into a series at some point with kind of like the first two books that I understand that you've read or written? Do you see a series down the road, or is it pretty much going to be standalones?
I would like to do a lot of standalones. However, my very first crime novel, My Darkest Prayer, has a character who I had intended to have as a series character. And it didn't take off the way I thought it would, but I may have an opportunity to come back to him. So I would love to do a series with him. I don't know about doing a series with Bug, but I do definitely, hopefully, have plans to revisit the Montage family in about 10 years and see where they're at and see how everybody who survived, see how they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I definitely would love to do that.
Awesome.
All right. And then, I've been married to be 29 years next month. And I think there was a part in Blacktop where you wrote something about a novelty fan isn't the hill you want to die on.
Yeah.
And, I can tell you there's a lot of hills that I've died on that looking back, was a big mistake. Is there one, from your personal experience that you look back on that kind of sticks out?
So I was with someone who was very dear to my heart, and we were doing the laundry, and we were putting the laundry away, and she was putting up the washcloths, and she was getting frustrated, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "Oh, we're missing a washcloth." I'm like, "Oh," and I went back to what I was doing, and then I stopped, and I came back into the pantry. I'm like, "How the fuck do you know we're missing a washcloth?" She's like, "Because we have 67 washcloths. We have 67 washcloths, and I'm only counting 66." And I was like, "Why the fuck do you count your washcloths?" And so she said, "Don't you know how many black t-shirts you have?" I said, "Someone could break in here right now, put a gun to my head." I say, "Pull the trigger," because I do not know how many black t-shirts I got. And so the hill that I died on was I wouldn't let it go. And what I thought was a funny joke for like 5 minutes was an uncomfortable silence for a week. And so I've learned to let stuff go. It is not worth it. The 5-second joke and laugh is not worth the uncomfortable, awkward silence that you got to put up with. So yeah, that's the hill I'm not gonna die on. Don't make fun of people by their
Who counts their washcloths?
I don't know, man.
I got no clue.
Gotta be a gal thing.
Clue.
Hey, Frank, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Those were fantastic questions, man.
Yeah, good questions.
Fantastic questions, fantastic beer.
Absolutely.
Glad you guys are enjoying them. Take care. Have a great night. SA, look forward to reading future work.
All right.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it,
buddy.
Bud. Good question.
There you go. Those are pretty good questions. Damn it.
Yeah.
That's not what the lightning round's about, man. Let's get to the crap.
The washcloths, though. Come on. All right.
That's pretty good.
All right. So, Sean, I'm up. The Virginia legislature reaches out to you and asks you to provide them with a new name for Route 1, which, by the way, is still called, for the life of me, Jefferson Davis Highway, the president of the Confederacy.
Yeah.
It's way past time. I know there's a bill out now to change it, but what would you call Route 1?
I would love for Route 1 to be called Arthur Ashe Highway.
Yeah.
That's my serious, real answer. But the devil in me would love for Route 1 to be called Virginia is for Lovers Highway. I just think that it was such a weird motto back when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And they quietly tried to get away from it. No. But I'm like, bring it back. Let's embrace it. Have condom stands every 5 miles and stuff.
Yeah, I thought you'd go with Blacktop Wasteland. That sounds like a great name for it.
Man. That's too arrogant, I think. I would let somebody else do it.
All right. So you've been given the ability to absorb the skills or talents of one person, kind of like the X-Men. What's her name? Jubilee. No, not Jubilee.
Rogue.
Rogue.
Yeah. So whose skills do you absorb?
Yeah. Oh man, Walter Mosley.
Yeah.
I just want to touch him on his shoulder and be able to write scenes the way he writes scenes, to be able to write stories the way he writes stories in multiple genres across multiple
That's the craziest
mediums. Yeah. Yeah. He does whatever he wants. He's like Joe Lansdale in that way. He's another one. I'd love to absorb his ability. I just write whatever the hell I want, and he was doing that before he got mega successful.
Yeah. I saw he has a master class. I've never taken a master class, but that's one of the ones I'm thinking about taking.
I saw that as well. I'd like to.
It's very good because I think it's based on the lecture he gave. He did a lecture series back in 2014, and I got to attend it. It was at a local college, and it was excellent. He's such a good storyteller in person too, like a raconteur. He just is a masterful storyteller regardless of the medium.
Wow.
All right, so Razorblade Tears is being made into a movie, and the director wants to give you a role, and you get to pick the role, but it can't be Ike. So which do you pick?
Oh, I'm going to be the jerk in the barbershop. I'm going to be that asshole in the barber chair. That's the best, because that's the one people are going to remember.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to remember the nice guy that worked at the convenience store that sold Buddy Lee's beer.
No.
It's like I want to be the jerk that gets the shit scared out of him by a tough ass Ike. So that'll be my role.
I thought he
asshole
was dying,
number
man.
one.
I thought he was gonna get stuck.
Really good. I was waiting for it.
Me too. All right, come up. What is the proper ratio of sugar to tea for a Southerner?
You want the proper ratio or the healthy ratio?
No.
Two
proper.
different things.
No, nothing healthy.
Proper ratio. The proper ratio is 3 tablespoons to an 8-ounce glass. The healthy ratio is probably a tablespoon to a gallon, but
nobody cares about that. All right. If your past equaled Ike's and you became known by a street name, what would it be?
My real nickname was when I was a kid.
No, we love it.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna hear it.
You're not gonna believe it. You're not gonna believe it. It was Dusty Books.
No,
that was my nickname as a kid because Dusty Books. My cousin George named me that because I used to have a backpack and I'd have all kinds. Because I used to buy my books. I used to get my books from like the library sales for like 5 cents for a paperback, or we go to like we go to a yard sale, somebody's yard sale, and I get old books like 10 book paperbacks for $1, and I carry them around in my backpack when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15. And he started calling me that, and it stuck till I went to college.
What?
Dusty Books. That was my
Dusty
nickname.
Books.
Yeah.
Funny. He couldn't have committed a crime. His name is Dusty Books.
Dusty Books.
All right, DB.
All right.
This was a guy who was nicknamed the Mall. So, we had an interesting set of nicknames around my way. But anyway.
All right. Let's see. Have you made any splurge purchases yet from your book sales besides the car?
I can't call the car a splurge, really. Because
you kind of need it. But...
Yeah, that other car was on his last legs. It's like, it's riding around in a Fred Flintstone car. I will say this. I did. This is so stupid. I bought a home axe throwing set because I was like up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was writing. I had a problem, and I was like, I'm gonna leave it alone, and I'm gonna scroll through, online retailers. And I was like, oh, this looks like something I should have, and I've used it twice. And it's sitting there gathering dust. And I feel bad that I spent money on it because it came with the target and a stand, and there's 3 like big axes and a whetstone and all this stuff. And it's like, this is so cool. And I went outside and I did it once. And I'm like, I can throw an axe. I did it the second time. I can throw an axe. The third time, I was like, I don't need this skill. Why am I doing it?
You were so
my book. If you write it in your next book, you can write that thing up.
His new street name is Dusty Axe.
Dusty Axe.
Dusty Axe. There you go.
Bring it to BoucherCon. We'll use it.
And just throw it in the bar.
The Marriott would love to have it at BoucherCon. Come on.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, I'm wrapping it up with my 3. So you write some formidable, sometimes terrifying dudes. Describe the scariest cat you've ever known.
Oh man, it's scary. I'll go back. The scariest cat I've ever known was somebody I was related to, my cousin the Mall. His nickname was the Mall because he hit a dude one time so hard, the doctor who examined the guy thought he had been attacked with a hammer. This guy, he was just the toughest son of a bitch I've seen in my life. I remember we were at a shot house, an illegal drinking establishment, and this guy showed up with his brother, and they were angry at my cousin, the Mall, because they were under the impression that Maul had been sleeping with the brothers, the guy's girlfriend, which he had. Mm-hmm. We all knew it. So they challenged. So they were like, come on outside. And I'll never forget, he was sitting there and he got up and he took a shot and he put it down. He said, if I go outside, I don't want you to complain when I'm whooping your ass. And they were like, it's two of us, it's one of you. Come on outside. He went outside and proceeded to beat them like they owed him money. I mean, it was just a brutality on a level I'd never seen. He hit one guy so hard his pants fell down. I kid you not. I saw that with my own two eyes. Hit the dude and his pants, like his ass muscles relaxed and his pants just fell down. And the other dude was like begging off. He was like, please, I give. All right, it's over. He's like, oh no. Oh, he said, we just getting started, honey. And he proceeded to beat the hell out of him some more.
Run.
Toughest dude I've ever known. Oh my God.
Wow.
Okay, well, Mike mentioned
toughest guy I've ever met in my life.
Mike mentioned splurge purchases, and besides axes, what is the one item you have too many of?
Books.
That's not true.
Books. I have way too many books. I have my to be read pile. If it falls over, it will kill somebody. It's like, but I see.
We know that feeling.
I love to read, and so I'll see a book and I'll finish it, or I'll get halfway through a book, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna start this one because I really want to see what this is about, and I'll go back to the other one, and I bounce all around, and it's just, I just love reading. I think as a writer, it helps you develop your own style, because you see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Like right now, I've got 2 books on my desk right now. I just finished Walking Through Needles by Heather Levy, which is a great dark book. Don't read this if you got a faint heart. And I'm rereading Michael Ferris Smith's Blackwood.
Okay.
These 2 books couldn't be more different, but I love reading. I love the act of reading. I love being able to sit down and get me like a little glass of whiskey and maybe sit on my deck and kind of just go into another world. And so I got way too many books. I guess if I had to give another answer, I got way too many black T-shirts, and I don't know why.
How many?
How many? I was wondering if it's how many rags? How many rags you guys have?
I know, right? And it's like I don't know exactly how many I have, but I know when one has gone missing. And it's like,
yes.
That's right.
Okay, last question.
All right.
Last question. As far as we're concerned, you are the undisputed reigning king of the simile. Yes. And I know your editor had you actually remove some, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
So I'm going to challenge you a little bit. Give us a simile. This interview was.
This interview was as hot as the bottom of the devil's boot heels, but it was as much fun as watching 2 eels fight in a bucket full of snot.
That's it.
Love it. Love it. That's actually now going to be our newest show motto.
Yeah. We're going to trademark that now.
Better than a bucket full of snot with 2 eels.
Hey, Sean. So I was telling the guys, and I know they agree, we read a shit ton of books throughout the year. This is top 3, top 2. This is one of my favorite reads of this year, dude. This was fantastic. Thank you for writing it. Thanks for coming on the show. Dude, you're awesome.
Yeah, this was one of my top 3 of all time, Sean. This is one of my top 3 of all time.
Oh, wow.
You hit me not just as an entertaining story, but you had me thinking about the characters and the situations, and you had me thinking about my own self and how maybe I would react and maybe my own fallacies. You really hit me way beyond just an entertainment read. So for me, this is my favorite book of the year, and that's really hard for me to say.
Yeah.
Oh man, thank you guys so much for having me. It's so much fun. Can't wait till we can do it again, and hopefully we'll be able to see each other at BoucherCon or something. I'm looking forward to it. You guys are great, man. I thank you guys so much, man. Appreciate it so much.
Thanks, Sean. Man. We'll see you next time, brother.
Peace out.
All right, brother. Bye-bye.
Hey, boys. Sean, S.A. Cosby on the show. We were talking Razorblade Tears.
Yes.
One of our favorite stories of the year. One of our favorite authors. So it's Raise a Glass to Sean for coming on the show. Awesome writer, awesome storyteller. Cheers.
Thanks, Frank, for the booze.
Thanks, Frank M, for coming on. All right, go ahead. I'll wait. It'll take a while, right? It'll take a while.
For Razorblade
Get it all out, sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
S.A. Cosby was just on, one of our newest favorite authors of all time.
Yes.
And here he is. Chris is ready to give us his one-man take of the show.
One-man take. It's a 3-man show, one-man take.
And game.